Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Chats with Children. I hope you're safe and well. Today, I'm continuing my reflections and forecast series that I'm doing this year, where I sit down with senior executives across the life science, pharma and BioPharma sector to get their views on the last 12 months, but more importantly, get their predictions for 2023. And I'm delighted to have a repeat guest or repeat offender, if you like, in Jane Lyons, who is country manager for Pharmalex Ireland and also the European coordinator for the quality management and compliance, to actually look back on 2022 and get her thoughts for 2023. So first of all, Jane, it's lovely to see you again. How are you?
I'm really good, Rizwan. Much better since the last time we saw each other because we're out and about now. The last time we spoke, we were in lockdown in Ireland.
We were in lockdown. In fact, yeah, it was about this time last year.
It
You and
was,
I had
yeah.
a chat. So a lot has changed since then. So a perfect opportunity to catch up then, find out how things have changed, not just from a Pharmalex point of view, but also in terms of your views on how the industry has changed during that period.
Sure.
But before we do that, for people not familiar with Pharmalex and Pharmalex Ireland, could you give me a quick overview of the business?
Sure, thanks, Rizwan. So Pharmalex is a leading provider of specialized services for the pharmaceutical, biotech and med device industries. We work with our clients from early stage strategic partnership development through non-clinical requirements. Then we bring them through the clinical development phase, regulatory submissions, and then post-approval, we work with them to help maintain their compliance while their product is in the marketplace and commercialized. And our consultants use technology-enabled solutions to help our clients maintain that compliance across the product lifecycle. So really offering our clients an alternative where we can work with them globally across the product lifecycle so that they have a comprehensive compliance solution for themselves.
Perfect. Well, that is perfect, and why I wanted to speak to you, because obviously I talk to people across the whole of that value chain, and you'll have seen the changes going on over the last year or so. So first question, and it's always, I say a simple question, but it isn't really when you have to think about it, is one word to describe 2022 and why?
So I said dichotomy in 2021 because it was really a world of two halves. This year, I would say augmentation.
All right. And why would you say that?
Because I really believe that we're building on 2022, what we did in 2021, 22, how we adapted as an industry, how we adapted as people, the continued development of cell and gene therapies, which is extremely exciting. Also, the significant growth in combination products and digital healthcare and wearables. Honestly, everywhere I look now, I see somebody with a wearable and they go, oh, it's monitoring my heart and that's going back to the hospital and all that data has been given live and in real time. So for me, I think we're really augmenting and building on the solid foundations that we laid over the last few years.
Right, well, I'm sure we'll touch upon that a bit more when we talk about some of the developments in 2022 looking ahead. Now, from a Pharmalex Ireland perspective, what have been some of the key standouts for you as a business in the last 12 months?
I suppose that we continued with our hybrid model. We took the lessons that we learned in COVID and said, you know what, this has worked for us. We don't all need to go back to the office. We don't all need to be stuck in traffic or on trains. Let our team decide when and where they work and what works for them. And that's been hugely successful for us because our team is extremely flexible now because we're a flexible company. And they don't have the distractions of the outside world on a daily basis. So they can really focus in on delivering solutions to our clients remotely and on site with the clients. But it's a real hybrid model. So it's sustainable for everybody, which is absolutely fantastic. And we expanded our team, which was wonderful and meant that we could expand the services that we offer our clients and introduce new services to our current clients, but also starting to work with more cell and gene therapy clients, which, as we know, is a very exciting space for everyone. And then Pharmalex globally, we looked at what our clients were looking for, and we saw that they really wanted holistic solutions from their service providers. So we've developed a whole range of service solutions to meet the needs of the clients that include all of our core services, but that we can tailor depending on the unique requirements of each of our clients. So it's been a very exciting year for Pharmalex.
Fantastic. And one question I'm going to ask you, just you talked about obviously the hybrid working model now and giving people the opportunity to work from home or work in the office as and when. What's been the client reaction to that in terms of working with clients now? Have they sort of said, well, that's great, we'll continue, or have some of them clamored to say, well, no, but I'd much rather you were there 24/7 coming, what's been their reaction to that? And also, have a lot of clients also kept the hybrid model themselves?
Yeah, so I suppose it's a combination of the two. Some activities you have to be on site. There's no getting away from it. But other activities, when we talk them through our process and they see the accessibility that they have to the consultants, they're really actually very happy not to have an extra body on site. It takes away from a lot of the health and safety issues and finding a desk for people and that type of thing. And it's worked. So we do a mix of remote virtual audits for clients, but we also go on site. You know, if it's a critical audit, we take a risk-based approach and we go on site for clients. So for us, it's worked extremely well, but it does depend on the service that we're delivering at any one time. And as I said, the team, because we're flexible, the team are extremely flexible and willing to travel and happy to travel to client sites when the need arises. And I think industry somewhat has taken the same approach depending on what department that you're in. So again, there are departments where there's no getting away from it. You have to have the feet on the ground. But yeah, we have found that our clients more and more are doing that hybrid model. And I think it's really working for everybody.
Right. Now, you've already touched on this already a little bit in what you just said previously, but looking back at 2022, I mean, what challenges have you seen the sector face? And also, what developments have really stood out for you?
Yeah, so I think with regard to challenges, probably the one that we spoke about last year continues with regard to the supply chain. And I think really that was, you know, the war in the Ukraine has just hugely impacted on the supply chain. I believe that industry, as a result of the last few years, is probably looking at reinstating API manufacturer closer to home. So we're not as dependent on the supply chain as we have been in the past. I also think for industry, retention of staff is a huge problem at the moment and was in 2022. I think people will go for remuneration, but they won't stay for remuneration alone. And COVID has taught them that, you know, there is a work-life balance. And the younger generation coming up aren't prepared to be saddled to a desk for 18 hours a day and to consider that that's a great job to have. So they're now looking at the cultural fit, the values of the company, and the flexibility. And in addition to all of that, the chances for personal development and growth within the company. So I think that's a real challenge for companies at the moment.
Right. And you talked about obviously maybe having API developments more on within local environments and onshoring, as a lot of people are talking about now.
Yeah.
How straightforward do you think that is, though, given that if you look at China and India being sort of the main hubs, if you like, for a lot of APIs and excipients and ingredients, if you like, how easy is it to do that, though, for many countries now going forward, do you think?
We did it in the past before we started to offshore. And I think it's a real topic, certainly in Ireland. I know Biopharmaceutical Ireland, our industry representative association, is actively looking at how we can increase the API manufacture within the island of Ireland. And that's one of their strategic goals over the next few years. I don't think it's impossible. Costs would be the only thing really that would prevent it. And then when you look at the cost of not getting your product out into the marketplace, you've really got to weigh that up and see what the cost benefit analysis is to each company individually.
Right. And one question which has come into my head while we're talking actually is, and we don't really talk about it a lot in general, but I'll ask you because as you are in Ireland, is how much of an impact do you think Brexit has had on the pharma industry now that we're sort of 3 years into it? Now, you know, because I know people are talking, for example, about the TiO2 regulations that the EU are imposing and how that's going to have an impact on the European countries and the medications they can access compared to, say, the UK, who's not part of the EU, and therefore that's going to have an impact on them. So, and there's supply of medicines, if you like, coming into the UK. So how do you think Brexit has impacted the pharma industry, both across Europe and in the UK?
I think the major impact has been for the UK-based pharma companies, to be honest. It is definitely more awkward to get product into the UK from Europe, that's for sure. But I think Europe is large enough that the impact has been seen to a lesser degree. But I know we work with our colleagues, obviously we have offices in the UK and we work with clients in the UK. And I think really from their perspective with new legislation coming in, that it's very top heavy on the UK pharmaceutical industry, the impact of the change in Brexit.
Right, okay. And one final question relating to 2022. Are there any areas you think the industry could have improved upon in the last 12 months?
Yeah, I think this goes across all years. The implementation, preparedness for the implementation of new legislation. We see it time and time again. We saw it with the Falsified Medicines Directive. We're now seeing it with Annex 1, and the IVDR, you know, companies go, oh yeah, that's a year away, or is that 2 years away before it can be implemented? And all of a sudden you're 6 months out and nobody has looked at what the key difference is. They haven't done their gap analysis. And then they expect people who are doing their day job to all of a sudden all rally together and start implementing the requirements on time for the implementation. So I think if everybody took a more strategic approach to the implementation of legislation, I think it would be very beneficial for industry and probably for team retention.
Right, that's very true. Although I know it was Annex 1, which was obviously finally announced in August.
Yeah.
That I'm sure we'll talk about in a little while anyway, is that's not immediate implementation, but I know a lot of companies are already thinking about that now, aren't they? Because
so August 2023 is the deadline. so
it's not that long away.
It's imminent. Yes, it's imminent now.
I know. There's probably, you start thinking that far, you start thinking you're wishing your life away, don't you? But anyway.
But when you think of all the work that has to be done in advance, actually, when you map that out.
Yeah, you're right. You're very true. Right. Well, we'll talk about that in a second. So let's talk about 2023 then, and I'm sure that'll come into it. So from a big picture point of view, what do you think are the main things that are likely to happen, and what predictions have you got for LifeScience, Pharma and BioPharma for 2023?
Gosh, I think it's going to be an incredibly busy year. I really do. I think the continued interest in RNA therapies and the development of cell and gene therapies is really going to drive innovation in 2023. The pharmaceutical industry is being transformed with the adoption of artificial intelligence, machine learning, natural language processing, and big data. And it's allowing them to restructure their business models, giving them the opportunity to, reduce human error, increase efficiency and performance. And all of this allowing them to bring more innovative products to the market much faster. So there are things that I really feel are going to make an impact. And then, of course, blockchain technology. While that word is typically associated with the cryptocurrencies, the adoption of blockchain technologies by the pharma industry, allowing them to securely share information live and in real time across organizations, to have accurate, up-to-date data of their supply chain, which of course is extremely important for the manufacturing processes, and also for the use of it in R&D and personal medicines, so that the data that is provided back from the patients can be used, and the integrity of it is sound. So that because it's based on this, that decisions are made about a patient's health. So to me, I think they're going to be the really big players in 2023. Right.
Okay. And let's talk about obviously a subject close to your heart, though, which is compliance and regulatory issues. So, we talked about Annex 1, but you can talk about a bit more about that and the other things. What do you think are sort of major developments and trends we should expect in those areas, and what should people be doing in those areas in 2023?
I think it's certainly with Annex 1, people need to really start going on the gap analysis now. Whereas before, regulatory expectations were that, they were always there, the regulatory expectations that things were done on a risk-based approach. That was not necessarily the way it was done in industry. As long as it was documented, it was seen as compliant. Whereas now, all decisions relating to patient safety have to be based, for sterile manufacture, have to be based on a risk-based approach. And I think now is the time for the industry to get cross-functional teams around the table, anybody who touches off the manufacture of sterile products in the business, do their gap analysis, and then start to look at implementing the changes so that they are ready for the deadline in August 2023. So for me, that's a big one right now.
Right. And apart from my next one, are there any, you mentioned a few other things that happened in 2022. Are there any other regulatory issues that people should be addressing in 2023 if they haven't done so already?
Yeah, I know that they've pushed out the deadline for the implementation of IVDR. But again, I would say to industry, start getting ready now, do your homework early, start preparing. We've also, I suppose, the mandatory use of CTIS for clinical trials is fantastic in Europe. So, you know, really providing a very robust information flow from clinical trial sponsors through to the European Commission, to EU member states and EEA countries, so that we can see that the standard of safety is there in clinical trials is always also extremely important for the industry. And it's super to see that it's mandatory and that people are start using it now. So they would be the big ticket items for me right now.
All right, fine. And from a Pharmalex Ireland's perspective, what can we expect to see from your lovely little organisation, or huge organisation?
It's huge now. We started lovely and small. We're huge now, which is fantastic because it means we can offer alternatives to clients. It's very exciting. I mentioned the solutions earlier. So we really focused last year on developing solutions based on our core services. So we now have solutions on integrated product development, bringing innovations to market, business and portfolio mergers and acquisitions, which was huge in 2022, as we know, and also our post-launch outsourcing activities, because more and more companies now are looking to outsource departments to companies like ours, but they want the total solution. They don't want just little bits divided up. And very importantly, obviously, our strategic and scientific consultancy solution. And again, we adapt these according to our clients' requirements. We can size up, we can size down at the appropriate times. So really looking to be partners with our clients. Fantastic. That they see it as part of the business.
Now, you mentioned M&A, though, activity. So I just want to ask you about that, because, again, the great thing about these things is things always pop into my head while I'm talking to people, is obviously there's been a lot in the media, in the scientific media anyway, about how M&A activity is likely to slow down in 23, and maybe the money will not be there as much as it was in the previous few years for a number of reasons, obviously. And biotechs have already seen sort of things been a bit harder in terms of getting funding. So what's your view on that, both maybe from a European perspective and also maybe a broader perspective as well, because obviously Ireland has always been quite unique in some respects, as it's seen as a hub, and there's been a lot of investment, obviously, I know, over the last few years in Ireland from a lot of companies. So what's your view on that in terms of funding for the pharma or biotech sector for this year?
I think it probably might slow down because there were a lot of acquisitions in 2022, and I suppose people have to bed down. That's one of the things that we certainly learned when you're acquiring companies, you know, go slow to go fast, bed in and then go next. And I think, you know, we're going to have a softer land than we had envisaged. I think we've seen that over the last few months, that the massive recession that was predicted, certainly here in Ireland, the talk was shocking. And it's a much softer land than any of us had predicted. I do still think there'll be mergers and acquisitions certainly going through in 2023, because there's probably so many in the pipeline from 2022 that will just land in 2023. So whereas it may slow down, I do predict that it will continue on. Right.
Fantastic, Jane. And finally, as we are at the beginning of 2023, I know it's hard to say we're on the 31st of January, but what last thoughts would you like to leave viewers for 2023?
I suppose it goes back to what I said earlier. We, as people, we tend to forget the lessons that we learned. Once we're out of trouble, we go back to our old habits. So the wheels really started turning again in 2022 with everybody out of lockdown. And we went back to the pace of life, went back to pre-COVID craziness. So it's just to take a moment to stop, recognize that we can adapt, we can make wiser choices, and to take the learnings that we had and bring those forward with them, because there were some real nuggets, not to forget them and get back into the craziness. And just to remember, you know, we are visitors on the planet. So let's think that way, and let's think more ecologically and environmentally about how we do business and how we live our lives.
Well said, Jane. Thank you very much for that. Well, very wise words. So there you go, viewers. I hope you found that interesting. I certainly did. It's always fun talking to Jane anyway, learning what her thoughts on the pharma and life science. No, it's true. So if you would like to know more about what Jane talked about, if you've got any comments about what Jane talked about today, then feel free to put them in the comments box below the video. If you'd like to learn more about Pharmalex itself, Pharmalex Ireland, then look at the link above the video and you can find out more about that. But also you can connect with Jane directly and message her directly on LinkedIn. I'm sure she'll be only too happy to hear from you. So Jane, it's lovely to see you as always. I hope you have a fantastic 2023, and hopefully actually we may even get a chance to meet in person at some point this year. We'd love to see you in person. And viewers, I hope you found that useful. And as I said, check out everything. So Jane, happy new year for 2023. And that seems a bit weird saying that on 31st of January, but I have only just seen you. So I wish you a fantastic 2023, happy and healthy and successful. And I wish you viewers, as always, the same thing as well, a fantastic 2023 in good health. And until next time, stay well and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rizwan.